Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Green Pass Gaming. We've got a special guest on the show tonight. We have Ains from Suing Gaming. Ains, really appreciate you dropping by, mate. I've been trying to get you on the show for a little while, actually, so it's good to finally get you on. The last time you were scheduled to be on the show was unfortunately when the Queen passed away in the UK, so we ended up cancelling that show. So that was a little while back. But appreciate everybody in the chat who's stopping by. I can see some conversation going on already. We also have Luke Steele on the show this evening. Luke, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, very well. It's been a pretty crazy week to sort of end the gaming year, hasn't it? So in more ways than one. So be cool to talk about it. But yes, I'm very well.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny. We've just had a message from Ash there, and apparently he's never heard of Suing Gaming. I don't know if you've heard of this Ash guy. I would be very, very surprised if they hadn't heard of you guys.
He's literally in our Bitcast chat like an hour ago when we ended the show. So.
Yeah, fresh off the back of the Bitcast. You've only had a little bit of a break, so again, really, really appreciate you stopping by. And it will be a pleasure to have you on. Looking forward to getting into the topics tonight. Obviously, as Luke mentioned, it's been a bit of a week. I guess it started off with Diablo 4 previews, then game price increases on the Xbox side, then the FTC dropped a bomb, and then the Game Awards. We'll see how much we can get into the show tonight. So, but Ains, how have you been, my friend?
Yeah. Doing well, man. Yeah, very well. Leading up to the holidays right here now, and I'm sure like many, quite busy with family and other things. Been busy. I kind of stepped back a little bit in November because, I found like many of us do who do content, it just like I was trying to do too much. And I was doing, multiple videos per week and trying to do Patreon and YouTube and trying to run the site and just became too much. But it's been a great year for Suing Gaming overall. We've grown a lot on the channel, grown a lot on the site. And, overall, I know we're going to get into some of the things from an Xbox perspective. We either disappointments or wishes we have.
Yeah.
But overall, it's been a great year for gaming. So it's I've been good overall.
Yeah. Good, yeah. As obviously we have this podcast, but it's the only thing we typically do. Sometimes we do some other things. I can't even imagine how tricky it can be managing the shows that you got Patreon and obviously having your day job as well. It must be
yes,
be a little.
This isn't my job.
I was going to say, yeah, must be a little tricky. But and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show, mate. But I think Suing Gaming is and the podcast that you guys do is one of my favorite on the internet within the community. I think vastly underrated. You guys deserve so many more views and everything than you get. So. Yeah, hopefully if anyone in our chat hasn't, I'd be surprised if they haven't, but if anyone hasn't, please check out Suing Gaming. Check out Ains on Twitter as well. All the links should be in the description if I set up correctly. If not, I will check after the show. But yeah, again, appreciate you stopping by, Ains. So actually, and there's one thing I wanted to say before we get started. I don't know if you remember, actually, I was meaning to speak to you about this. I'm still a little salty because of the absolute arse kicking you gave us on Halo a while back. I don't know if you remember the Halo Championship we did. When was that? It must have been about a year and a half ago now.
Yeah, it was Gaming Beyond the Box. That was Wilmy's group organized.
Yeah.
I totally forgot we played you guys.
I think it was the final as well, wasn't it? Did we get the final?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was final.
Yeah. We got the final, and we did.
It makes
it
even
great.
worse that you just forgot. Like you just tossed us aside, and then we're like, oh, that's it. It was destroyed them.
I felt bad because Wilmy actually reached out to me. They were trying to set up a Halo 5 tournament like a year ago, like a little later, like several months later. And they're like, people are asking if your team's going to be in it because they don't want to play you guys. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to steer people away. I didn't, I used to play Halo competitively, like in tournaments and stuff. And so when you talk about a Halo tournament, you don't know going in how competitive it's going to be. So, I got my buddies. I was like, hey, let's put a team together and play in this tournament, thinking we were going to play a tournament, like of really high competitive level people. And clearly that was not the intention. So I felt a little bad afterwards. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, we did much better than we expected. We had Pucks, who unfortunately can't make the show. Flaps still taking a bit of a break. We had those guys on, and they were playing Halo pretty much for the first time. So we didn't really expect to get very far in the tournament. And then we got to the end, and we were hyped. We couldn't believe we got the final, and then we got our asses kicked in that final. It was rough. It was rough. So
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it was a lot of fun. It was a while about that, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. So
Well, and I don't think, to be completely honest with you, Puma, who's on our team. So I'm good, and Pat's good, and the team is good. But Puma, who's our fourth, like if I were to play him, he'd crush me. He's that, like, he is amazingly good.
yeah.
So he just put us over the top, where it was like, a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, and speaking, I guess of competitive Halo, you made your way down to, was it Orlando for the Worlds recently?
Seattle.
Did you go Seattle? Sorry, did you make your way there? Ah, very nice. You enjoy the show?
It was great. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were so I went with Mariano Pampa, who's in the community, and good friends with him. I play Halo with him all the time. Is in Seattle at so there was Xbox people in the area, and the last day there, I know Phil was there. Pierre Hines, who's the new head of 343, was there. I got to meet Steve Downs and Jen Taylor.
Nice.
Met a whole bunch of pro players. It was a great time. And as Halo, as you guys well know, right? A lot of criticism towards 343 this year and a lot of ups and downs. And I've been one of the staunchest defenders, even though I have my own criticisms of Halo Infinite. And but the event itself was great. It was a lot of good energy, a lot of positive people, just a lot of cool things going on. So it was a blast, man. And got to even outside of like the event, you would just see everyone around right there in the downtown Seattle area. So tons of Xbox people and Halo players. It's fun.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm a little, disappointed that I can't get to those types of things, because I watched it live. I stayed up late to watch the final. I didn't appreciate the Cloud9 guys taking it to a second match in the final, because that made it very late for us in the UK. But it was a really, really good event. So
it was
glad you enjoyed
wild.
it.
We were like nearly front row for that final. Me and Pampa got seats early. We were in basically the last day, the Sunday, we were in those seats almost all day, because if you get up, you're going to lose your seat. So we were in the second row on the Cloud9 side, and we were sitting next to Penguin's mom and dad and his girlfriend, and like Eco's girlfriend was right. Like they were all right next to us.
Yeah.
And when they dominated that first round and caused the redo, we were like, oh man, this place is going to go absolutely wild if Cloud9 really takes it to them here, in the final. And, Optic killed him after that, but it was still a really good time and a lot of good energy.
Yeah, really, really good. Some of the events over the past 12 months were very, very good. Looking forward to season 2 of Halo Infinite. It's funny, we're probably going to talk today about some disappointing things from an Xbox point of view. It's funny that recently Halo's maybe been the one bright spot with Forge and the winter update, and some of the little surprises in the most recent update as well. I think things have maybe flipped on their head a little bit. So before we get into any of the topics, just want to say a little bit of a hello to a few people in the chat. I've just seen Stubbs Gaming's joined in, Sentinel's in there, Tugungulu's in, Ash, and I saw Boxenberger earlier as well. Thank you all very much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Ash, yes, Forge does look insane, and with the custom game browser now, then there's a hell of a lot of fun to be had in Halo. Like I say, the one bright spot from the Xbox perspective. But as we said sort of at the top of the show, we've had a bit of a week, so we've got a fair bit to try and get into. FTC, Suing Microsoft. We got the Game Awards that were on Thursday night. We had Diablo 4 previews. We had Xbox game price rises. We've got a lot to dig into. So let's jump into it, gentlemen. I think we could probably start with the Game Awards. I guess tribute to Luke's most exciting announcement of the show, I did capture some Death Stranding footage just for Luke. If anyone saw my tweet, maybe didn't enjoy it too much, admittedly, but we've got a little bit of Death Stranding on the screen for everyone here very, very early in the game. But I guess we'll start with the Game Awards. Luke, what were your thoughts on the show there, mate?
I thought it was really good, actually. I mean, there's always that kind of split of the awards bit and then everything else, so all the announcements, reveals, etc. I think the awards bit kind of just did the same as it has been doing in the last few years, which is to say that some of the awards get, some good attention put onto them, and it feels like an award show when that happens, and then a lot of the others are just, just Keeley just says, here are the nominees, and then here's the winner, and it just kind of really desaturates the award element for it, which I think is always a big problem when you've got this combination of reveal and award stuff. So that element still had issues, not helped, I suppose, by Christopher Judge's, marathon speech at the beginning.
Holy shit, that was quite a speech.
I actually loved that because it's a rare sight of like spontaneity in some of these things. However, it really was super long. And I think you said afterwards, Scott, it was like 8 or 9 minutes, but it didn't feel like that. Doesn't sound like a lot. But actually, when you think about it in the context of a speech, like an acceptance speech, that's such a long time.
Yeah.
So, it just kept going. And then it was just, I was there sort of half like cringing and laughing when they started to overlay the music. And that sort of just like G'd Christopher Judge up more to continue. And that was all kind of, that was interesting enough, but then there was like the Al Pacino bit to start, which, kind of dragged on in of itself because he couldn't read the teleprompter very well. And then was just like rambling. So it was all very bizarre to start with, but I actually really loved that. So, that didn't help then some of the other awards, which I'm sure got cut short in terms of, speech time, etc. But I'll let it slide for Christopher Judge because I think he's amazing. But otherwise, I mean, the reveal stuff for me, the reveal stuff was probably the best show I've seen from the Game Awards, at least since it was probably rebooted into that. I thought there's a lot of really, really good stuff. Some good surprises, some good kind of check-ins on games that we've heard about before but not seen, and we can talk about some of them individually. I'm sure we all have kind of personal highlights. But I thought it was really good. It was still too long. That's just part and parcel of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But we'll see if he manages to shorten it next time. Probably not. It's just the nature of this type of show where you're combining essentially two shows into one.
Yeah, it's almost, and I've said this for a while, is it kind of has a little bit of an identity crisis. I think if it had a different name and it wasn't, the Game Awards and had a different name and had awards and announcements, I don't know, maybe it would be a little bit better. But on the time side of things, he did tweet ahead of the show that it was significantly shorter. That turned out to be only 30 minutes. So it was still like 2.5, I guess 2 hours 38 with Christopher Judge's speech on this. So yeah, I agree. I did think the pacing overall was better, even though it was still a long show. I thought it still flowed a little better, although, we'll get into Xbox a bit later, but, things like that Samsung ad, the Game Pass ad with Ninja and things like that just really hurt it in my opinion. So, but Ains, you've spoken about the Game Awards on the Bitcast a fair bit recently. Mm-hmm. I know you've, maybe not the biggest fan of the show overall. Do you want to touch on that a little bit and maybe give us your thoughts on the Game Awards beforehand and then maybe what you thought of the show after watching it?
Yeah, so I think pacing's always been an issue for this show, and I think Keeley continues to try and figure out what would be best for the audience. I think to your guys', I agree with almost everything you guys said, which is it's still too long. They need to, if you're going to do the pre-show, that's 30 minutes too. So if you're watching the whole thing, it was over 3 hours again, and that's just too long for an award show. It's just too long. So I think, cut down some of the ads, maybe prioritize bigger reveals, have less but more, if you will. And save some of those other things for maybe, he has a Game Awards kind of channel. Maybe you just sponsor smaller reveals at other times, maybe not necessarily during the show.
Yeah.
And I, again, like you guys said, we always joke that it's a Game Awards show. It's literally in the title, but the big thing a lot of people tune in for is reveals. So it's trying to figure out that line to walk is tough, I would presume. But I think honestly, despite all that, I like some of the things he does with difference. I like the Game of the Year orchestra where they combine the key tracks from the highest nominated games. I really enjoy that stuff. Like I love game music and stuff. But I think the thing we talked about on Bitcast, which I agree with and kind of have the same thought, is the sad thing for me out of everything with the Game Awards is it feels almost kind of like a popularity contest. So if you look across the gaming industry, there's so many games that release every year. And there's tons of variance and nuance to all these decisions that get made, I understand. But if you look through the categories, because I went through them this morning, Requiem, Ragnarok, Forbidden West, and Elden Ring, the 4 of those were probably nominated for like 8 awards as the nominees. You know what I mean? And it's like those are all fantastic games, bar none, and probably the biggest games of the year. But I mean, it's just I think there's an opportunity to really highlight other games in these categories rather than the same games just over and over and over and over again. Because it should be rare where you have a game that just dominates every category. And that's, I think, my biggest complaint, because you can tell by the games that are left out. And the bizarre, I won't even talk about Stray, which was nominated for like 6 awards, and yet, shouldn't have been anywhere near those categories. So I don't know what happened there, but I think that there's just an opportunity to highlight more games here, because this is a big spotlight for them, and it's a little disappointing to just see the same kind of top handful always get focused on.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Were there any particularly big omissions from your perspective, Ains? Were there any games that you thought either should have been at least nominated or should have won an award that maybe didn't throughout?
I think the indie scene's a tough one. I think because there's so many indie games that release every year, I understand like it's obviously extremely hard to narrow that down. But I think Cult of the Lamb was in one category, it didn't win it. Nobody Saves the World wasn't nominated at all. Vampire Survivors was in one category, it didn't win it. You have there's indies I'm gonna forget now, but there's quite a few large scale, very highly critically rated indies this year that were not nominated for anything. And yet you see like Stray winning best debut game and best independent game, which even if you look at it critically, it's not even in the ballpark of the highest rated games out of the indie scene. Which just goes to show, like I said, Stray was a PS Plus game. It was popular on PlayStation, and it just feels like a popularity contest rather than a true kind of excellence award. So I don't know. Who knows what goes on behind the scenes, and we don't know the true gist of how these things are organized. But I just feel like there's an opportunity there that's missed that I hope they try to drive towards in the future.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of discussion following the show talking about are making comparisons between the Game Awards and things like the BAFTAs or the DICE Awards, which I believe, at least in the case of the DICE Awards, they're primarily developer, developers vote for the game, so they're seen as maybe a little bit more prestigious. So I wonder what Jeff can do to maybe change the outlook that you have, because I think there's that sentiment is shared from a lot of people in the community, and I wonder if there's anything that Jeff can do to help shift that narrative a little bit, whether it is maybe bringing in voting from people within the development scene, but I guess it's then he's always going to have that issue between announcements and awards. So do you make it more about the awards, but then you're going to lose the audience? Do you make it more about the announcements, but then what's the point in calling it the Game Awards at that point? I think it's starting to get better, but I think there's always going to be challenges in trying to find that particular balance. But as Luke said, I think there was a lot of good announcements, some surprises. Were there any particular announcements that stood out for you, Ains?
I'd say the biggest reveal for me was definitely Judas. So I am a huge BioShock fan. One of my favorite games of all time. I respect the hell out of Ken Levine and what he created with that kind of IP and universe. And Ghost Story Games is his new studio, and they've been working on this game for years now, and it's been waiting to really see what he was creating, and it looks like BioShock. But to me that's a good thing. It looks like another wild experience. I found it very funny, and I forget what the phrase was now, but at the end of the trailer, they stamped a phrase on the screen. And I said to someone, I said, you can almost guarantee that phrase is going to play a part in the story to some degree, because he's just very nuanced in the way he approaches storytelling. But I'm super excited about that. My most anticipated game is Diablo 4. I've thousands and thousands of hours in the Diablo games through my life. And but we knew that was coming. But the cinematic trailer and the presentation of Diablo 4 was incredible to me.
Blizzard do cinematics just different to everyone
heads
else.
And shoulders.
They're top tier. A shame that got leaked, I think, ahead of the show. I mean, there's always that argument, you get leaks. People want leaks, but people don't want leaks. People just want the information now. But then when they are leaks, there can be some complaints. But look, you were a big fan of the Judas announcement. I know you were super excited for that game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, huge BioShock fan. So whatever Ken Levine making is interesting to me. Again, it looks like Bioshock in space. I mean, it was very, very evocative of Bioshock. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's always a bit difficult because then people put the expectations of Bioshock on it, and it's not like he said before that it's not going to be like exactly like that. It's going to kind of branch out, be more kind of emergent narrative stuff, which is really interesting. I'm excited about it. There was also some tempering of that excitement for me about kind of Ken Levine in the past, the way his studios have worked. And I think there's been reports about the Judas development, maybe as of a little while ago, was kind of having difficulties as well because of Ken Levine, because he's very demanding. But, I'll wait and see when previews hit how people respond to it, and then maybe we'll get some more stories about it. But certainly from the trailer, it looks really special. So I'll be interested to see what how it plays. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Bioshock elements to it, but it's the narrative elements that I think are the most interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Were there any platforms or dates put on Judas? I don't believe there were there?
Don't recall.
Yeah, I think it was one of the games that didn't get a date on it. So it just to Ains's point, obviously they've been working on this game for some time. So it will be interesting to see when that game does finally drop. Were there any other standout? Well, actually, I don't know why I even ask if there were any. Do you want to tell the people what your favorite announcement of the show was, though, Luke?
Oh, my favorite announcement.
Yeah, your favorite.
Oh well, I mean that was very clearly. Street Fighter 6's new release. No, that was very clearly Death Stranding too for me, which was no surprise because like everybody anticipated this going into the show anyway.
Yeah.
And I knew there would have been very few games, I think, that if it had been there and if Death Stranding had been there and then another game would have been there, that I would come out of that saying that the other game was like my heart. So yeah, Death Stranding 2 was easy highlight for me. Everybody knows my thoughts on it, and I'm a big Kojima stan, so it looked kind of just as crazy as the first, probably crazier actually than the first one, but I did find it interesting that unlike the first one, and when that the trailers were going around, having played the first game, I actually kind of knew what was happening in this one. Like some of it made a lot of sense.
I'm glad someone did.
Okay. Yeah. So if you finish the first game, you will be like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. I mean, there's still lots that are like, baffling, even for someone who's played the first game. But yeah, I just it's just really exciting for me. I thought it looked absolutely incredible as well visually. Seems to be next gen, this gen, exclusive, running Decima. So I thought, some of the cinematic stuff in there from a visual perspective was pretty insane. Particularly there's that fisheye sequence where Fragile is in the lift going up with the baby. I just thought that was like one of the closest things we've seen to photorealism, visually at least in real time. So looks amazing. I'll be interested to see as well how that changes from the first game. He's going to pursue the same type of gameplay. Is it going to be more action orientated? Like, don't know. But I'm super excited for that. Super excited.
Yeah.
Let me ask you if you don't mind, Luke. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Of course.
So I haven't played Death Stranding. It's just one of those games you look at a game and just say that's just not for me. And I preach all the time. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Every game's not for everybody.
Oh, no.
But I know that Dan and Hogue, both from Bitcast, both adore Death Stranding, the first one.
Yeah.
They both really enjoy it. And we were talking today about it, and both of them said that they don't know why there's a sequel. Not that they don't want it, not that they're not excited about it, but that the first one wrapped up kind of the arc of what made sense, and why does he feel the need to make a sequel? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think when I finished the first game, I kind of had a similar view, more expectation. I didn't expect Kojima to go back to the IP, because it does tell quite a self-contained story, and it wraps it up in such a way that that's kind of it, right? But I mean, I guess that game kind of laid the framework and the foundation for like a really interesting world that they could go and explore. Obviously, they're bringing back, pretty much every main character from the first game.
Yeah.
And continuing that. And I don't know whether for Kojima, like having written the first one and then, the pandemic happening and it being kind of, like a parallel tale to the pandemic, maybe he felt that there was another story to tell post-pandemic and that was the right world to do it. I feel like maybe that's why he went back and was like, actually, I want to kind of do this again. But tell a different story within that world, same characters, but an extension of it. So it's a bit like, The Last of Us Part 2, right? Where a lot of people finished Part 1 and then there was a sequel announcement. And they were like, do you need another game like to continue the story of Joel and Ellie? And
I'll answer that. No, they didn't.
I think you did, because I think I love the story of The Last of Us Part 2, but there are reasons where there are things that happen, as people know, as to why maybe people don't agree with that. But that I don't see the Death Stranding 2 story being quite that divisive, mainly because it's it's just
because no one can
crazy.
understand it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just madness. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm really happy he's going back to it because I think it's such a unique game, and I absolutely adored the first one. So I'm happy about it. But I do wonder how much he's going to change in terms of gameplay, and if he's going to, make this a bit more action driven than the first one. I suspect it's Kojima, so I suspect he will try and do pretty new things in this as well. So whether they'll hit or not, I don't know, but I'm excited. I'm in, no matter what. I'm in, and I'm just glad he's going back to it.
Nice.
Yep. Was that a 2023 game, Luke? A 2020?
No release date on that.
No release date.
No release date. So that's far out. Probably 24 early.
Yeah. Well, I did promise you I would play a little bit of Death Stranding. Even though Ains, like you, it was kind of one of those games that I just didn't think was for me. But I thought, promise Luke, I'll give it a shot. And obviously, with that being announced during the show, I give it a shot. And let's just say it didn't do anything to alleviate any of the concerns or fears I had going into it. I will say it looks ridiculously good. The music's awesome. Even just running on my gaming laptop, it looks excellent. I couldn't imagine how it looks on your rig, Luke. But I will power through, but I really struggle with the early moments in the game, particularly just the amount of cutscenes, just the lack of doing stuff in those first couple of hours, and even just what you were doing when I was walking and constantly falling over because I had a body on my back. I just found more frustrating than anything else. So
got to give into it. Just be in it.
Yeah, I'll give it a couple of extra hours, Luke. I'll promise you that, but. Because I know you said, I think a few people said like chapter 3 is when it kind of opens up a bit. So I'll give it till then. But I was actually surprised that they didn't end the show on Death Stranding 2. For some reason, I kind of thought that would be the closer, big announcement from Kojima. Yeah. But it was sort of slap bang in the middle, which took me by surprise. But obviously, there were a load of other little announcements scattered throughout. So I think one that stood out for me, we've got Indie Gamer in the chat as well. So this one's for him, which was Hades 2, which I think caught everyone by surprise. Actually, I don't think anyone sort of expected to hear from Supergiant so soon, and maybe didn't expect a sequel to Hades. So look, I know you're a big fan of Hades, Ains. So you a big fan of Hades as well, mate?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I know some of the guys that write at Season Gaming, it's like one of their favorite games ever. I mean, they are over the moon for it. For me, I really enjoyed the game. I think it's a fantastic game. It's not one of my favorites of all time, but the announcement was definitely a surprise. And it's funny, right when I was watching, because I was right at the start of the show. And my wife came down and she's sitting here for a few minutes and she's like, what is this? She doesn't game really. And I was like, this looks like Hades 2 or like a Hades something. And I said, if it is, there's going to be people going nuts. And sure enough. So, yeah, it looks good. I'll definitely play it for sure.
Yeah, it was probably, I'm trying to think if there was anything that beat that from an announcement perspective. For me, it was probably my highlight of the show. Really, really enjoyed Hades. I came to it late because I played it only when it came to Xbox. I was super excited for the game. I even bought it on PC, despite the fact I couldn't actually play it on PC, just in anticipation of hopefully having some hardware to play it. But it was when it came to Xbox that I finally managed to get my hands on it properly, and absolutely adored everything about that game. So really, really looking forward to that. 2023, I think they said in early access, which if I remember correctly, they did for the original Hades as well. So really excited for that come. Luke, were you surprised to see Hades 2 from Supergiant? Were you maybe thinking the next game would be something different?
Yeah, well, I was surprised that and not when I took half a second to think about it after the announcement, which is that Supergiant never do sequels.
Yeah.
But then again, they've never had something as absolutely monumentally successful as Hades, so it just made sense that they do a sequel to it. Again, it's a world you can do a lot in. So I was kind of like watching the reveal, and I was like, is this Hades? Like, this is really similar art style. Music very similar. I'm like, is this an expansion or like some DLC? And I was like, well, no, because Hades has been out quite a while now. So I was kind of expecting Supergiant to reveal something soon, maybe not Game Awards soon, but early next year. So I was quite surprised. I mean, I'm delighted because it's kind of in one of my top games of all time. I'm just glad we're getting more of it. I think it'll be awesome. I don't think Supergiant, I don't think they've ever really missed. Like, they're just a top developer. So everything they've ever done, I've enjoyed.
Yeah, really excited. Really, really excited for that one. I think I'm a little bit ashamed to say it took me probably a little too long to realize what it actually was, because I had the same feeling as you did, where I was like, oh, this looks like Hades, but I didn't expect to see anything Hades related. So my mind was tricking me into thinking there must be something else. And then when it came, I was like, oh, yeah, shit, that makes sense. I'm glad to see it. So I do need to get back to the original. There was a few runs I didn't end up completing, but yeah, everything I played with that game I absolutely loved. But I think in terms of other highlights, I know Ash mentioned it in the chat. I think it's getting the Street Fighter 6 release date. Not obviously a massive trailer because we've seen a little bit from Street Fighter 6, but that was sort of relegated to the pre-show. That was the final announcement of the pre-show. It was good to see that get an announcement. That's June, I believe. Diablo, June. Tekken was shown off. Final Fantasy 16, June. June's looking like a pretty stacked month for next year. Yeah, what do you think of Final Fantasy 16, Luke?
Well, it's amazing. It's probably top 3 most anticipated for next year. They really know how to do trailers really well. Always super epic. Kind of music and imagery, and they're just really, really good at that. And I think this is one of those games that's kind of looked like, from the first trailer to the most recent one, you always get this sense of progression in terms of how the game's coming along. Like, each trailer has kind of upped, in terms of visuals and the cohesiveness of the art and stuff like that. And I think this one's kind of the culmination of that. I'm sure they'll have another one. I don't really need to see any more now, is what I will say. There will be more trailers. I'd rather see some extended gameplay if we're going to see anything else. 5 or 6 minutes of that. But yeah, we don't need to see any more story stuff, I don't think. I have a feeling it's a pretty vast game, but I'm just looking forward to it. I mean, it's great we've got a release date and we can look forward to it now, and I'm certain they will hit that date as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on the not needing to see a little bit more. I think there's been a few games recently, Luke, we always laugh about Deathloop being the prime game where it was shown way too much, and I actually felt a little bit like that about the Callisto Protocol as well. I thought that was getting to that point where we've seen that a little too much. I imagine Final Fantasy 16 really should one state of play probably ahead of launch, where it's just extended gameplay, and hopefully that's it. Because I think there's a few games that have maybe overstayed their welcome in the sort of pre-launch marketing hype. like I say, those two are good examples. I don't think anything will ever beat Deathloop. I was sick of that.
Oddworld Soulstone.
That's another one. Yeah, I've never actually been sick of a game before it's even released in the way that I was for Deathloop.
Yeah, I hated Deathloop. I absolutely hated it. And in fact, I think, funny enough, it probably marred my enjoyment of the game when I got my hands on it, because I'd already had this preconceived notion that it was going to be shit. And there was no other reason for that other than that, and I love Arcane. I was just so tired of the game before it even launched. Never repeat that cycle.
Yeah, I still did enjoy the game completely when it came to Xbox, but I think it was probably good that I had that break from it being released on PlayStation and getting that marked period out of the way. That certainly did help it back, because I imagine I might have felt the same way as yourself, Luke. So, Ains, are you looking forward to Final Fantasy 16?
Yeah, kind of. I'm a little weird in that space. So Final Fantasy, I have very fond memories of growing up with. I adored the classic ones. And then I've kind of moved away from it in the recent gens. I for whatever reason, I think when we were growing up, or at least when I was growing up, Japanese role-playing games were it, right? Like the Final Fantasies. I'm a huge Phantasy Star fan. I was a Sega guy.
Yeah.
Shining Force, and I mean just all those, and I adored them. But as time's gone on, nowadays I just greatly prefer Western RPGs. For whatever reason, they just appeal to me more. So I really liked what I saw out of Final Fantasy 16 with their first announced trailer with the kingdoms, and they showed a lot of kind of classic Final Fantasy themes, and I hope that we see that through the game. So I have it pre-ordered already, because I joked that it has 2 steel books here in the US, which means I'm automatically buying the damn thing. So we'll see. I am going to play it. I am pretty excited for it, but I don't know if it's going to vibe with me the same way as Starfield, or like Witcher does, or those types of games I just play more nowadays.
Yeah. Speaking of The Witcher, a little bit of a tangent. I know you've been playing a little bit of the next gen, or I guess current gen upgrade for Witcher 3. You've been enjoying that?
Yeah. I was fortunate, got access to it, and it is really well done. So if you're a fan of The Witcher 3 and you're looking forward to this update to go back to it, it is better than I thought it was going to be. So it's substantial. It really makes the game feel like it was released now. It's super beautiful. The texture work and the things that have gone on with the foliage and other things, combined with the new performance mode, which is just buttery smooth. It's a very nice upgrade, and there's some usability features. There's some new music tracks that they incorporate into things, and a lot of nice little touch-ups. So it's been great. I joked on Bigcast, I played 8 hours yesterday, maybe.
Holy shit.
I'm unapologetic. I started my vacation.
That's a good session.
That's
a good session.
Yeah, I woke up at 7:30. I think I played to like noon, did some stuff, filmed a video, did some other stuff, and then I went back to it last night. And it's just So anyway, if you're looking forward to that update, definitely be excited. I don't think it'll let you down. It's certainly surprised me in a good way.
Luke, is that one you're looking forward to checking out?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't got back to The Witcher for a couple of years now. The last time I went back was for Blood and Wine. Finished that, and then that was pretty much it. I think in the intervening period, I probably maybe half a playthrough of the game again. So it will be nice. A lot of it will be quite fresh as a result, because I haven't been back for so long, and obviously with the new liquor paint, I will be looking forward to loading it up and seeing how it looks and running it as maxed out as it possibly can be. So that'll be nice. I just hope I don't know how the PC version kind of goes above the console version patches at the moment. I know obviously that it might just be crank stuff up a little bit higher, but I'll be interested to see how it is on PC as well. Hopefully it runs well. I'm sure it will. But
yeah, I was gonna say that the the PC version was already stunning, and then they have mod support and other things. So I think really, I don't know if you're running a high end PC version, I don't know what this will do for you. It's more of kind of taking advantage of the PS5 and Series X, really, and S.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
They are releasing an update to the PC version. So I believe there was some controversy because it's an update to the existing version rather than a different version on PC. And I think there was some controversy around the impact that might have on maybe people with low spec hardware and things like that. So
yeah, I think the PC stuff will just be that obviously you'll be able to put every ray tracing element on, and if you've got the hardware for it, get high frame rate.
Yeah,
basically. Which is good enough for me. So I'm looking for checking it out.
Yeah, I think
awesome.
that's Tuesday or Wednesday. This next week, is it the 14th?
Wednesday.
Isn't it? Yeah,
it's Wednesday. The embargo for I can talk about it, but I can't. You're not allowed to publish footage of it until Tuesday. So you'll probably see Tuesday a bunch of videos and reviews and whatnot pop up. There's neat little things I've noticed because I've played that game a ton. But when you first start the game, there's that graphic novel voiced over intro that tells you the story.
Oh yeah.
If you might remember, well, that's completely new now. So they've added a lot to that where it shows the Northern Realms, and it tells more of the story, and you can tell it incorporates for people who have watched the show, kind of brings the story together to talk about who's doing what in Nilfgaard and these other things. So there's a lot of little touch-ups like that, which are really cool.
Nice. I've probably played about 45 minutes of The Witcher 3, and it was kind of one of those games I know this is going to be shameful to say in front of you two, I think, but similar to Elden Ring, I played that for about a similar time. I just thought, this isn't for me, very, very quickly, and I uninstalled it. So maybe this is the one. Maybe this makes it, because I think the thing is, it's almost a decade old now. The original Witcher, isn't it? It was about maybe 8 years now.
Yeah, 2015.
2015.
Yeah. So I came to it super late when I thought I'll check this out because of all of the excitement. Well, I say excitement, obviously. I know there was a lot of excitement at launch, but I think it might have come to Game Pass. Did it come to Game Pass? I can't remember.
It did for a time.
Yeah. So I think it might have been that. So I thought, right, I'll check it out, and then I don't know. It just didn't grab me. Although admittedly, those really aren't my type of games anyway. To be perfectly honest. So
great games. You don't like them.
I've just got bad taste, man. I've just got bad taste. So I'm too busy playing Halo. That's it. So in terms of other announcements at the show, then just going back to the Game Awards, please stop me if there's anything that you guys want to chat about in particular. One little highlight for me, not massive, but Returnal coming to PC, finally getting that announcement. Finally. I know that's been that was leaked a long time ago, and another win for the Nvidia leak, I believe.
Yep.
That was one of the ones that's there. Yeah, excited to finally be able to play that. There was also The Last of Us Part 1 PC release date, which I'm looking forward to playing that. I believe it's £50 on Steam, Luke. It was 70 when it came out on PS5, so they didn't dare go for that. Even Sony know they can't get away with that. So
yeah, you're not going to get away with that. 50 sounds about right.
Yeah, there was Replaced. Finally got a new release date window for that. Really looking forward to replace another wonderful looking indie game. I believe that was originally due for release this year and then got pushed back. Were they a studio that was impacted by the war in Ukraine? Am I right in thinking I may be getting them mixed up? Ooh, I might be stretching. Let me know, chat, if I'm way off the mark there. But it was still good to see that. And then actually probably my second highlight behind Hades 2, which was Jedi Survivor. Really enjoyed Jedi Fallen Order. I thought it was an excellent trailer. It's coming March 17th, if I remember correctly. It was good to see Carl on the stage. I forget the name of the actor. Is it Connor? Cameron. That's it. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, he plays the Joker in Gotham. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. It was good to see him on stage, and I thought it was just an excellent trailer. And there seems to be a lot of excitement around that game, which I think when you think back to the original announcement of the first game, Respawn, obviously a studio primarily known for their first-person shooters, releasing the Star Wars game in this genre. I think there was maybe a little bit of hesitation there, but obviously the first game knocked out the park. Really excited for the second game, and it's not too far away. You guys excited for that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thought it looked great.
Yeah.
Happy that it's. I know this gen only. I know they had already confirmed that effectively.
Yeah.
It's nice to see it in writing. And I thought it looked really, really good. Kind of what you'd expect from a sequel. Look bigger, better visually, more variety, more mechanics. So I think that will be really good.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Yeah, I like the first game. I thought it was really good, and I'm excited to see what they do with the sequel. I have a ton of faith in Respawn as a dev, so it seems to be coming at a good time too in March. Because as we've said, there's so many games coming in May and June already that hopefully March is a little more open time frame for that game to succeed. It'll succeed anyway, but you know what I mean. Get a little more focus.
Yeah, isn't February already fairly busy at the moment?
Yes.
As well. Yeah, the first half of next year already is looking, and that's even without the games that may drop in that first half of the year that don't have official release dates. Starfield and Redfall are both technically first half 2023 games.
I think you've got Resident Evil 4 remake in March as well. Maybe I think that's in March.
Dead Space remake in January.
Dead Space, there's a lot.
Yeah, Forza will be in there somewhere. I'm guessing Forza will probably be in the May-ish time frame too, which means it's gonna be crazy.
We say it I think quite often, but like next year is looking massive. I mean, we didn't even touch on obviously Tears of the Kingdom there as well. That's coming in May.
May.
So, Christ. Yeah, next year is looking pretty stacked out already. So, but it's exciting to have all these cool games come. We've got a lot to look forward to. Do you guys think Starfield's going to hit the first half of next year? And we'll probably touch on our Xbox in just a few moments. But are you guys thinking? They did this. They said both of them were going to be first half 2023. At the moment, they've got Forza that they originally said spring 2023. Do you think all three of those games are going to hit between January and the end of June?
No.
I don't think so either. I want to say yes, but my heart is saying no.
I think Redfall will probably hit first half of next year. Starfield, I just can't see doing it. It just, I don't know. Every sense out of that game suggests it needs more time than they gave it, i.e., up to the end of the first half of next year. I think it will launch next year, but I just suspect it'll get pushed back to the winter at some point. It won't matter because it's a Bethesda game, so it will still be riddled with bugs. But like they could work on it for 15 years, it would still have issues. However, the more time they can give it, the better, I think. So I just can't see it. It's also a big deal. I mean, it's a new IP for BGS. That's a big thing in of itself, and they don't want to have, I don't think, any kind of cyberpunk-esque launch, which is just tragic for the game. So no, Redfall I can see first half. Forza definitely, I think first half. They've already said spring, so they've narrowed that down anyway. But Starfield probably not.
I'm sorry, Luke. I was going to say, or Scott, I'm sorry. I was going to say I'm in kind of similar boat. I think Forza I'm confident in. In fact, when I was reviewing Forza Horizon 5 back in November of last year, I got into a play test with some of the Forza sponsored by Turn 10 and Playground testers, the people that get the games ahead of time, and they were already playing Forza then. So I was actually pretty confident that it was going to release this year, but I guess, they're just taking their time with it. Redfall, I could see being ready, but Starfield, to Luke's point, is just such a big, massive game, and it's so important to launch. Like, that game has to launch well. Xbox is relying on it. Game Pass is relying on it. Bethesda's relying on it. I mean, there's a lot of focus on that game. It has to land well. And I think if you release that game with bugs and early and it hits like, as much as I hate the whole Metacritic conversation, if that lands at like a 75, 80 Metacritic with bugs, that's going to be a world of hurt. They can't have that happen.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably a good place to segue into, I guess, either one of the next couple of topics, which is Xbox's lack of presence at the TGAs and the price increase that they recently announced. And I tweeted about this at the time, actually, and I kind of feel with the sorry, I'm just watching the Death Stranding footage I've got on here and just watch me fall over, just thinking, fuck, like how often do I have to press right trigger to get my guy just to stay straight? But I tweeted at the time, which is, in my opinion, I thought the announcement about the price increases puts more pressure on games like Starfield. Not that it could, I don't think there's any excuse for the game coming out in the state that you mentioned. Look, I know there's an expectation about it being a bit of a mess because it's, typical Bethesda. But I think if that game's going to be $70, Game Pass or no Game Pass, I think there's just an added amount of pressure there on that game delivering a high quality experience. And like you're saying, it's 75, anything sub 80, even maybe sub 85, I think.
Yeah, even sub 85.
I think would be a bit of a disappointment. And I'm not someone personally who really cares too much about reviews, but they matter in the context of the industry. I don't think there's any getting away from that. And I think that announcement by Phil Spencer that they're going to increase the prices of their games just puts such a big spotlight on Starfield, where if it is a mess, if it's anything like Cyberpunk, if it's anything like even to a lesser extent the Callisto Protocol, I think that's going to be really rough. That's going to be a really bad luck for them.
I think as well that they're, and I know this wasn't solely Bethesda Game Studios as in the primary dev, but they're coming off the back of Fallout 76, which I know now is in a lot of a much better state than it was, but that similarly had a lot of issues. Was pretty panned for the most part when it launched. So they've kind of got this scenario where they're going into the next game with like added pressure because they've got their name on a product that is in a better state and it's done well, but had those issues at launch. So they really need to get this launch right, because if they don't, then it's not going to be the end of BGS or anything, but it's just not good for them if that happens. And as Ains said, there's a lot riding on Starfield, I think, across different factors. So
yeah, and it's the first kind of the biggest launch for sure, where Xbox would take the brunt of responsibility if it doesn't land well, right? And there's all kinds of factors into this conversation that make it super important. And I wish, when they put the 11/11 date out last year and they asked Todd, IGN asked Todd, how confident are you in that date? And he said, rock solid. And everyone's like, oh, maybe it will actually launch. Of course it didn't. But I just think, like, why did you even do that to begin with? You know what I mean? Like, I have that conversation about all these big games. It's like, you're the lead developer and you've worked on games for 25 years. Looking and playing a game if it's going to be ready or not, or you should know if it's going to be ready or not. And I don't understand how that happens so often in this industry. I mean, obviously there's financial factors and marketing and there's all kinds of things that go into it. I understand that. But I mean, if they supposedly have the freedom they do and they're able to delay it and they have the backing of Xbox and some of these studios have the kind of leeway to release when the game's ready, then why do you make those early statements like that are so definitive? I think it only hurts you.
Yeah, definitely. And Xbox have been guilty of that themselves quite a bit. Halo Infinite being the biggest example. How long before? When did they announce the original release date for Starfield? The 11/11 date. Was that
Game Awards last year, maybe?
Yeah, so it was about 12 months out ish when they announced it. Yeah, and I do remember the sentiment around that was there was a lot of skepticism. But people thought, really, are you going to hit that date? But you're right, they seemed pretty confident at the time, and then they announced the delay. I think fairly. I mean, what was it, like 5 or 6 months afterwards? They announced the delay, and yeah, you must think how can you go from in, let's say, November, December time to, it's definitely coming out next November, to 6 months out going, actually, we need at least another 6 months. I'm struggling, to understand how that is. And part of me wonders if it's just, is it just they were going to try to hit that date as soon as possible, and then maybe not as soon as possible, they're going to hit that date by any means, and then maybe when they saw the state of the game, they were just like, actually, hold on, we cannot
We
release this game in
we
this
can't
state.
crunch this that much.
Yeah.
It's impossible to crunch it that much.
Yeah, and then maybe they've gone to Phil or someone and said, look, we can hit November, but it's not going to be great. We need more time, and then it's been granted. I don't necessarily know how that decision making process goes, but you're right, Ains. Why put that date on in the first place? You know, why even put a year on it until you're absolutely certain that game's going to hit that date? And yeah, as you said, there's a lot of pressure, a lot riding on Starfield, and I just hope it hits. I really do. I think Redfall, there's maybe a little bit more leeway almost with that game. I don't think there's anywhere near as much pressure on that game. Starfield is obviously the big one, Xbox and Bethesda. Yeah, I'm nervous. If I'm being perfectly honest, I'm genuinely a little.
You've talked yourself into it now. You've talked yourself into being.
But like I say, a lot of these topics we can kind of just wrap them together. I think, you know, if it was going to come out between now and June, I figured they would be released. They would put out a release date trailer during the Game Awards. Surely that's when you put out. If it's going to come out between now and June, you've got to know it's coming out between now and June. If it is, if it's not, well, you know, I guess that's a different conversation. And the fact that they didn't show it kind of makes me think, no, it's not going to hit June. It's maybe going to be September, October, November, maybe an entire year. And then off the back of the announcement of the game price increase, I just thought there's so much riding on this game at the moment for Bethesda, for Xbox, and if Xbox don't have anything else next winter, and it's just Starfield, and that's their big game, and it does have those issues, and it does cost more, I think Xbox might be in for a pretty rough year. It's obviously not going to be as bad as this year, but I think maybe a lot of the goodwill that they've generated over the past couple of years, maybe that might start to wane a little bit. That might be being a little bit over dramatic, admittedly. You know, might come out, it might be rock solid. You know, 60 FPS on consoles, Luke. I know we've spoiled.
People need to brace
everyone loves
for
it.
the 30 FPS Starfield Revolution.
Yeah,
Bethesda game. They don't optimize their games that well anyway, so I don't know why people think they're going to get. If they do, that's impressive. Really impressive.
I mean, the trailer, I think when they showed that gameplay, I think that was quite obviously 30 FPS.
It wasn't even a very solid 30.
Not consistently.
It was a target of 30 FPS. So yeah, I think it would be much to expect that to hit 60. So but in general, gents, actually going on the $70 announcement from Phil Spencer, were you surprised that they pulled the trigger on that one so soon? I mean, I say so soon. Obviously, it's been a little while since other publishers made that decision, but I thought it was a little too early personally, but where do you stand on that? Speechless. Speechless.
It's a weird one because they're using Redfall, Starfield, and Forza as the push for this, right? To say our upcoming titles that are new gen only, because they're all Series X and S only and PC, are going to be $70, and first party is going to be $70. And I think I'm not surprised they went that way. We knew they would go that way eventually. Surprise, I'll tell you ahead of time, Game Pass is not going to be $15 forever. Yeah. You know, it's just, that's the nature of it. But I am surprised, circling on this conversation, right, that they decided to announce it now when you haven't given Xbox gamers a reason to be overly confident in first party delivery this year. And where Xbox gamers are already in a place of we were joking before we started the show, it's the hope that kills you, right? Like all of us as big Xbox fans have been waiting and hoping. And, you know, I won't speak for all, I'll speak for myself. I'm a huge Xbox fan, have been forever since day one with Halo CE. And I support the hell out of them. I've had very fortunate circumstances with the company to meet people and talk to people. And, you know, I love Xbox to my heart. But I think it's absolutely fair to be a little jaded and to have a little criticism of delivery right now and to question to some degree of their ability to manage a full portfolio of studios. Now, it's fantastic of Game Pass delivery. I love them allowing the freedom and the hiring and the budgeting they seem to be giving from everything we know to these studios, right? And to allow them to foresee their creative vision through the process. All of that is fantastic. But there can be a point in game delivery where the leash is too long. And we've seen that for decades, where games, you have scope creep, where games scope gets too big and then they deliver a disjointed mess of a game, right? That doesn't work well. Or you get release dates that on games that never come out, or they come out 2 and 3 years past relevance, right? And right now, I think it's fair to levy some of that criticism to say, look, love you guys to death, have confidence in the games that are coming, but you have to put up that these games are going to be delivered, or that some games are going to be delivered in a very good AAA state. They did a good job of that last year, right, with Forza and Psychonauts and Flight Sim, etc. But Psychonauts was well into development. Halo was a year late already, and arguably didn't, not even really arguably, didn't launch with a live service plan that worked.
It's taken them a year to get to a point where you could even argue it's in that state, you know? So some have argued that it should have been released this winter, 2 years after its original release date. So
yeah, and I'm not that extreme for other reasons.
I don't agree with that. But, you know, I think people can make that argument. And it's hard to disagree because we've now got Forge, we've now got co-op, we've now got like almost a functional live service. So you can see where they come from when they make that argument.
Yes, agree. And I don't think I'm saying anything that all of us haven't said before. I think there's just concern of the state of delivery. And 2023, as much as we have been saying, wait till next year, I think 2023 is that hard line year where if Xbox doesn't deliver at least the games we're talking about and more, there's going to be some serious questions that need to be raised about the leadership at first party studios. And that's just my thing. So going back to your original question, I'm not surprised at it. I think the timing of the announcement was strange, especially when you don't have release dates for the games that you're saying are going to cost $70.
Yeah. And as we just said, as well as the questions that we've got about games like Starfield, I think if this was this time next year, and these 3 games came out and they're all bangers, they're all high quality, they don't have bugs, you know, I mean, we can dream. Then I think at that point they can make an argument, and I think it's maybe a less bitter pill to swallow. Please tell me if you disagree, but I mean I don't agree with the price increase at all. Regardless, I don't think anyone should have done it personally. But if I look at something like Sony and their first party studios, I think there's an element of trust in a lot of those studios, in someone like Naughty Dog, Santa Monica, that okay, they've increased the price and they get on those games, but you know you're going to get a quality product for your money. And while the price increase is probably a bit of pill to swallow, you can still swallow it because you know you're going to get a quality product. And I don't think Xbox and the first party studios are there. And until they're there, I think they should have held this particular announcement. Now, if they had made this announcement, and like I said, these topics kind of all wrap in together. When they made that announcement, I thought they're going to bring something big to the Game Awards. They're going to get this shitty news out the way now. They're going to bring something big so we all forget about it. Maybe they bring Avowed and they announce it for 2023, and then we've got Starfield, Redfall, Forza, and Avowed in 2023. And then, then we're thinking, okay, they're starting to deliver. They're getting that regular cadence of games coming out. We've got these AAA games coming from the studios that they've acquired. And here we are. You know, crickets from Xbox, apart from a shitty fucking Game Pass ad with Ninja.
A brief appearance from Phil.
Yeah,
looking like he wanted the floor
face
to swallow him.
Yeah. He didn't look happy, did he? I don't know. Maybe I was looking into that too much.
I think he said something like, "I'm sure I lip read that he said something like, I don't want to be on that fucking thing." I'm legit. I'm not even joking. I'm sure he said that. Yeah. That's how grumpy he was. So yeah. But it was more annoying because actually when he was there. And I think Sarah Bond was next to him. I was kind of like, oh, good. You know, they're gonna show something tonight. That's cool that they're there. I mean, I know he's on the advisory board and all that stuff for the Game Awards, but like to just do that and have basically the Samsung advert, and then a little Game Pass sizzle reel. It was.
You have to show something. You've got
to,
what I expressed previously was like they had, I think we all agree, or most of the Xbox community anecdotally to me agree that the last two summer shows they've done have been really good. Like they've done good kind of E3 style shows. But the video game awards, right? When people watch your Xbox show in the summer, they know it's an Xbox show, right? And you're it's not an echo chamber per se, but you're talking to your audience. Whereas the video game awards is not only one of the most, if not the most viewed video game show of the year, but it's all video games, right? You've got people who play mobile, you've got people who are Nintendo fans, you've got all these people that don't normally pay attention to Xbox. It was your opportunity in the biggest year ever last year and this year for the Game Awards to come out and say, wow, here's a ridiculously good looking game that's coming to Xbox, right? Like, and it doesn't, you didn't even have to show something brand new if you didn't want to. You could have shown Hellblade 2. You could have shown another clip of Fable. You could have shown some Avowed, like something we already know is coming, but just show us something.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge miss for them not to. And I also just want to say, because we just talked about this on another show, is that there's a rumor going around. I don't even know where it came from. That they didn't show anything because of the FTC review. It's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. It's if you don't believe that, believe me, it has nothing to do with that whatsoever for a number of reasons. They should have shown something. And by the way, first and foremost is we already know these games exist. They've already shown these games, right? It's not like I could rant more about this. I don't know what they're thinking. Like they just seem to miss on the marketing department more often than not. And as a fan, it's frustrating.
Yeah. On that point, Ains, I think we were discussing in our Discord, and I said this, look, I could maybe understand that argument if maybe let's say they wanted to show off something. Like a very extreme example that I used was, let's say they've got GTA 6 exclusive. Obviously, that's not the case. But if that was the type of announcement that maybe they were going to make, I can maybe see that argument. I don't think they would, but I can maybe see that argument where it's something brand new. Maybe it's something exclusive that they're taking that was previously not exclusive. I could maybe see that argument. But you're right. Something like Avowed, even Hellblade 2 again, Perfect Dark, Fable, any of these games, or just a game from any of their existing studios, even Compulsion, the Coalition, those teams announcing their next project is going to have absolutely fuck all to do with it, with the FTC or any regulator, and yet. Yeah, we got nothing. So I really don't buy that argument. And Aaron Greenberg came out after the show, and he tweeted like, "Oh look, we're excited to show you stuff. You're not going to be waiting long." And one thing, and I said this again after the show, and I actually said it about the summer showcase. I thought it was an okay show, a good show actually. I should say it's a good show. I think the one thing that they did wrong about the summer showcase was they didn't set expectations. They should, in my opinion, have set expectations like, we're going to focus this show on the next 12 months. Because people were expecting, and something that's way out, the next Gears project or something like that. But that was never going to happen with the plan. But we didn't know that until the show started. I think the same thing here is, rather than Aaron Greenberg reacting to the negative feedback that came out after the show, why didn't they get out of it and just say something like, look, we're excited to see what our industry friends and partners are going to show. Xbox are just keeping things in the wraps for a little bit longer. We'll have something for you early 2023. And then, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have even stayed up to watch the show at that point, to be honest, because I was convinced we were going to see something from Xbox at the show. If they had just made that one tweet, I think that could have made a big difference to perception. It still would have been shit, to put it frank, for them not to show up, even if they got out ahead of it. But at least you've set expectations ahead of time, rather than reacting to the negativity that came from the community. So we had a show, and I'm sure you guys did on the Bigcast just a week or two ago, and we were talking, what are Xbox going to bring? It's going to be Fable. Is it going to be Avowed? Is it going to be Perfect Dark? Are the Coalition going to turn up? We were all talking about, right, what are Xbox going to bring? Because they've set an expectation over the past few years with those games. Christ, they even showed off the Series X for the very first time at the Game Awards. Yep. They've set expectations that they show up at their show, and they just didn't. They didn't. Not even a tiny bit. And I think that's a massive disappointment But to be fair, I think everyone's of that opinion at the moment, unfortunately for them. And now they're in a situation where they've just got negative PR. In the past week, FTC, price rises, Game Awards, and like we were saying earlier, the one thing that they've got good going for them at the moment is fucking Halo, of all things.
I love it. I love it.
That's been dragging them down for the past 12 months. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'm Indy. Sorry, Indy's just mentioned there. I wasn't just watching for the Xbox. I wasn't. No, like I said earlier, there was a lot of really good announcements that of games that won't necessarily come to Xbox. But I'm not going to lie and say that I wasn't expecting something big from Xbox to show up, and that would have been, probably the highlight of the show for me if they did show up. So, yeah, I ranted a little bit there.
Yeah, no, you're fine. To Luke's point, right? Look at how excited Luke is, and I know many other people are for Death Stranding too. It's all over the place, right? Kojima's back, Death Stranding's returning. A huge night for PlayStation between Death Stranding 2, obviously God of War winning a bunch of awards. They're nominated for a bunch of things. Yeah. And you can, I think it was Miles who posted, because he was there, he said, you can feel the energy for PlayStation in the room.
Yeah.
Comparatively. And it's just like, again, you can't change that. And this is the place to change that for Xbox. And it's just a weird decision, man. I don't get it.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the Sony stuff, they actually had put the awards element to the side. Obviously, announcement wise, you had actually almost like a mini show, a mini PlayStation show within the Game Awards. You had Returnal, announcement plus release date. Last of Us Part 1 PC announcement. I know this is PC as well, but it's all Sony. Death Stranding 2, another Final Fantasy 16 trailer with release date. Forbidden West DLC announcement.
Yeah.
More footage of Call of the Mountain Horizon. You had tons. You had loads of stuff. So it just makes, Microsoft look even worse because you've got, PlayStation and Nintendo showed up as well. Not as big as PlayStation, but they had stuff.
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah.
So I just thought it was piss poor, to be honest. I thought it was really, really poor form for them to go there and not have anything on what is the biggest single gaming show in any calendar year now. It's much bigger in terms of viewership than their own shows. So, and to Ains's point, it's got a broader spectrum of gamers that can be exposed to this stuff. And just shouting Game Pass at people, or Samsung integration is not really going to interest people, because at the end of the day, people tune in for games, not services. Yeah. Even though the services are great, don't get me wrong, but they just needed. I said afterwards, all they needed was a single trailer. That's it. It could have been from anything.
Yeah, just one big thing.
Just one thing. It didn't need to be. They didn't need to go as hard as PlayStation did. They didn't need to do anything like that. But they could have just had. Avowed would have been great for a trailer, or I don't need to see any more Hellblade 2, but at least it would have been something really impressive. To get people talking, like the Death Stranding 2 announcement was, something that was impressive, got people talking, even if you don't like Death Stranding, or if you think it looks weird, it still raises conversations. So it was very bizarre. Yeah, and just to touch on the regulator point is total. It's such nonsense. It's basically, I can only assume it's a coping mechanism from people trying to justify a lack of presence at the show.
Yeah.
Because a regulator does not care if you show off products ancillary to a merger or an acquisition that is being investigated for competitive processes. A pharmaceutical company does not stop announcing or showing everything they're working on because a regulator's looking into its merger with an ancillary or adjacent pharmacy company. Like, it just doesn't work. Disney, Fox, Marvel, they did not stop showing off or announcing projects just because they're involved in competitive, merger analysis from regulators. Like, I know I can say this from experience. You just don't stop doing stuff. So it's just total bollocks, basically. It's just nothing. And you shouldn't be using that to trot out an excuse as to why they weren't there. I think we're all sensible enough that we can say they look like they have a great 2023 Xbox, but they can be criticized for having a really poor 2022. And then at the bookend of that, not giving anything for people to be excited about going forward, even into the far future.
Yeah.
They will do that. They'll make up for it next year. But just come out, as you said, Scott. Just say it before the show. Ed Boon came out just for NetherRealm's next project. He said, we're not going to be there. Yep. Why couldn't Greenberg just go online and do that? Could have done it the day, but he could have done it hours before. It wouldn't have been a good look, but it would have been all right.
It would have been better. That's the thing. Anything, literally anything, would have been better than what they showed.
Yeah. The funny thing is, Luke, what you said about the regulator, because I was going to say, I know you're speaking from a place of knowledge in the space, and Hogue said it's so ridiculous you could almost argue the opposite, because he said by showing that you're able to deliver great experiences to people, you're showing that you're a good curator of these companies that you're trying to acquire.
Yeah, exactly,
So he said it's actually almost even the opposite of what the people are. So it's just it's people looking for an excuse as to why they weren't there. And I don't care how much you love any of these companies, you shouldn't create excuses for them. We're consumers. We're not their friends. We're consumers. So I love Xbox. We all do here. The people listening to this, I'm sure, do. But we're the consumers. We want a good product. We pay them for good products. That's what we should expect.
Yeah, and I think it's important, as fans, and I think this goes for anything. It could be sports, it could be, games. Like, if you genuinely are a fan, then you should expect and demand better. Like, genuine fans of a company, product, brand, whatever it may be, when that company, brand, whatever fucks up, you need to call them out on it, because you're the target audience, you're the customer, you're the one that's paying them money.
Exactly.
We should be expecting, and we do expect better. And I agree with everything that you said, that people shouldn't be making excuses for this $1 trillion company.
Who makes excuses for the richest company?
Exactly.
It's just. I even heard someone online say, "Oh well, the Game Awards isn't that big. Like, it's not the biggest thing of the year." And I was like, "But it is. It is. It's the biggest single. Like, in terms of viewership, it is the biggest single gaming show of the year. Keighley's built that. Like, whether you like that or not, that's what it is. So why wouldn't you have something there?"
I don't think Keighley has announced the stats from this year's show, but I believe last year's show was something like 75 million viewers.
It's way up there. I don't know.
And each year it's increased significantly. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's getting towards that. If it was that, I might be mistaken. Chat, please let me know if he has released any stats or if I'm wrong there. But I believe it was something like that. And do you think Xbox's Summer Showcase even got a fraction of that
even
viewership?
PlayStation's wouldn't have. It would have done really well. It wouldn't have got. It wouldn't have got those numbers. You could probably take PlayStation and Xbox's numbers. I know PlayStation didn't have a showcase this year as such, or at least the big one, but they probably wouldn't even touch the Game Awards numbers. So combined. So I just, small show, very, very not well known, just absolute nonsense.
Yeah, but that then begs the question: why? If it isn't the regulators, which we're on agreement, it's not. Why didn't they have anything to show? I genuinely cannot think of a legitimate reason as to why they didn't have a single thing to show. Now, I don't know where you guys stand on this, actually. I'm not too sure if we've spoken about it, Luke, but I know there's always an argument over CG trailers and whether they should be used now. Now, I'm always of the opinion, I don't mind CG trailers for the announcement. I think once you got that out of the way, next time you show it, it's got to be gameplay. It's got to be significant. But for an announcement trailer like what they did with Perfect Dark, with Fable, games like that, I really don't mind CG trailers. No. And if you're going to show one, I think this is the perfect opportunity. They could have shown a CG trailer for literally any project. It could have been 2, 3, 4 years out. I mean, there could then be criticism that they're showing things too early again. I don't necessarily agree with that personally, but there's what's stopping them from just creating a quick CG trailer? I literally cannot think of one legitimate reason as to why they didn't have a single thing to show, which is just it's absolutely baffling. Yeah.
I feel like as Xbox fans we have this conversation a lot, don't we? It just it feels like we're always we're always just left scratching our head, like, and then they'll have that moment where like something shows really well. You're like, Xbox they finally did it.
Finally got it.
And then you're like, from here on out, they got it now. They know what to do. And then 3 months later, we're like, what the hell are they doing? You know, it's like they just there's no cadence of proper delivery into what they do, and there's no reason. To your question, there's zero. I can't think of a reason why they didn't show something. And Disney we just last week got the trailer for Indiana Jones 5 all over the internet with Harrison Ford and Indy coming back. Why not show a teaser trailer for Indiana Jones? It's okay. To your point, Scott, it's okay if it's a couple years away. Let people know that there's an Indiana Jones game coming on your platform to the 80 million plus people who don't normally pay attention to Xbox. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting annoyed just talking about it. Like,
it's true. In Exile's game, why can't you just show a CG of that? Just concept stuff. Like you could have done. I mean, I know these studios, like, you know, these studios might not want to show this stuff immediately, but Microsoft have, 25 studios. There's some content. There is something they could have shown. Right. Like it's not hard to envisage. Like we're not going back to the doldrums where they had like, Turn 10 and 343 and the Coalition, and that was pretty much it. Like they've got enough studios that they could show one thing. Even if it's something we've seen before, just a new thing for it, it could have been another Indiana Jones trailer, as Ains said, like just, story kind of showing where this is set, getting a feel for what type of game it would be, that sort of stuff. Like that would be fine. In Exile, Compulsion's new game, CG trailer, like just something a bit different, like anything like that would have been good. So I don't like. I keep thinking about it and thinking, okay, well, what's like a good reason for them not to be there? And there's nothing. There's nothing. So I'm really interested to know what was the reason. Like why weren't they there? And even if I know Greenberg hinted in his post that we've got very soon we've got something, but that's so abstract that it doesn't really make up for the fact that they weren't there, because it's, to be honest, it's Greenberg, so I don't exactly have like huge faith in what he says online, and it doesn't really, just saying something's around the corner or coming soon does not make up for the actions you've just perpetrated effectively. So it's not like the end of the world that they weren't there, but I just can't think of any rational reason as to why wouldn't you, from just a pure marketing perspective, want to show something.
And to further that point, Luke, as we all just said, you come out and say, okay, we've got stuff to show soon. Soon is ambivalent, right? Like that could be any time. Everyone says
that could be E3. June's only six months away. It's 6 months isn't that far away. Is he referring to that? We've got no idea, because he just.
And to the point we just made, no matter what soon is, even if you have, let's say you have a gigantic showcase in January, which is not going to happen, but let's say it does, still not going to have the impact of the Game Awards.
Yeah.
It still doesn't have the reach. And
to Luke's point, there's 25 studios. They can have a showcase in, let's say they did have a showcase in January, Ains. They could still have something at the Game Awards and a showcase in January, and they should have enough content to cover both. So the only, if we're to take Aaron Greenberg at his word, the one thing that we can maybe take away from it, I don't necessarily believe this, but let's maybe try, is that maybe they've got their own thing coming up soon. And I guess what we would maybe expect from that is Redfall release date, Forza release date, Starfield release date, and maybe a look at some other future titles. But Xbox have never really done that sort of thing early in the year. And obviously, that's not going to stop them from doing anything. Switch it up from year. But then they're going to have a showcase in June. So what are they going to do in the first half of the year that's going to not be eclipsed? They're going to have to take things from their big summer showcase that they typically have each year to having this earlier showcase, and I don't buy it. What exactly are they going to have? They're going to revive Inside Xbox and have Major Nelson bring out his gloves again. I bloody hope not. But what is that plan? And I kind of feel like the tweet was very much just a reaction to the negativity, and part of me thinks that it's the negativity is caught them by surprise, And that in itself, in my opinion, is worrying because, they could have asked me and I could have said, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. And, I would have given that for free. So that in itself, I think, is a little concerning. But if they do have a showcase, like I say, early next year, it's probably not going to be January, so let's say it's February, March. That's 2-3 months removed from the Game Awards. That's only 2-3 months away from their E3 showcase. So what is it that we're going to get? And I've got no idea, unless they're going to take away from E3, which I would be surprised if they're going to take away from whatever they've got planned to show there. So yeah, baffling decisions.
Is. I don't have any answers.
Yeah.
It just, and the weird thing is, at least to me, this is anecdotal, I realize, but we, as Xbox fans, we talk about how the Xbox leadership engages with the community more than PlayStation and Nintendo, right? Like you see Aaron Greenberg, you see Phil, you see plenty of Sarah Bond and others talking on Twitter and other spaces. They do podcasts, they do interviews. So it feels like they should have their finger on the pulse of the community more than PlayStation and Nintendo, but for whatever reason, it just feels like they're separated from it. They don't seem to understand expectations. And I agree with you, Scott, 100% that Aaron's tweet felt 100% reactionary. Like it didn't even occur that they should have had a presence at the Game Awards beyond what they had, and that fans would be upset if they didn't show something. And that probably most concerning of all.
Yeah. So they've got a lot of work to do, I think. I think they've given themselves a bigger hill to climb next year due to everything that's gone on just over these past couple of weeks. They've kind of given themselves more issues that they've got to overcome. There's always the meme about Xbox where wait till next year. It's always next year. Or, even if we go back to the old Xbox has no games meme, they've always had these challenges to overcome. But in cases like this, it's self-inflicted. They've created this problem for themselves, and I think they need to take a long, hard look at themselves and look at what their plans are for next year and make sure that they're setting expectations accordingly. And it makes me think now that next year they can't do what they did in this summer with the showcase, where they only show the next 12 months. I think if that was the plan, I don't know if it is, but if it was, I don't think they can do that. I think they've got to come out swinging. But in June, in March, whenever it may be, whenever they come out, I think they've really got to come out. They've got to make people forget about these past few weeks. They've got to show people why the games are going to be more expensive. They've got to show people why they skipped the Game Awards because we wanted to hold this massive announcement back. But we're not. We're just going to have to wait and see, which is a little bit of a theme, I think.
I was going to say, it feels like the whole come out swinging, I feel like we've been saying for years.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a massive shame. Please tell me if I'm being dramatic, gents, but this is probably the most disappointed I've felt in the brand in a long time. Like right in this moment. I think it's been a while since I felt this sort of. But it's weird because I do have excitement for the future. I just think in this very moment, in what's gone on, like we said, and just in terms of not having the finger on the pulse, not having anything good to show, the biggest show of the year. I don't know. It just feels like a bit of a moment where I think all the goodwill that they've built up with the community through the more consumer friendly things that they do, like Game Pass, like backwards compatibility, and things like that. I think this is sort of just eating away at a lot of that, which, that won't last forever, even if people aren't feeling the way I am at the moment. So, yeah, we'll just have to, as I said, we'll just have to wait and see what the next year brings. And I've like I say that, but I'm thinking right now, like I am super excited about the future of the platform.
Me too.
But I want to see it. I just want to see it. I'm unbelievably excited for games like Fable. Fable is probably my most anticipated game that we know of right now. Personally, I can't think of another game that we know of, or even that's rumored, to be perfectly honest, that I'm more excited for than Fable. And when did we see that? Was that 2019? Mm-hmm. That we saw that?
Yeah. I think it might have been because I think I was in the crowd at the E3 20. Was it E3 2019?
And actually, just while you're looking that up, Ains, if we're to believe Matt Booty, I believe in interviews he's spoken about. I think he referred to Fable specifically when he talked about this. He was saying that, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, he was saying that these studios, they want to show their games, and Matt Booty's saying no, we need to hold off. We need to show them when they're ready. So if he's to be believed, the studios want to show off what they're working on, but someone or something is stopping them from. Is stopping them from showing it off.
Fable was 2020 summer show.
2020. That's still 2.5 years ago. That they showed off, and not a peep since. Not a peep. Even something like Everwild. What was that? That was 2018. I think that they showed that trailer for that game.
Supposedly
might be 2019.
Got a complete reshuffle.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so we'll just have to look forward to see what they do have planned for the new year, and I hope it's good. I look forward to it. I mean, if they do come out and they have a showcase in January, February, and it's a good showcase, then maybe you can look back at it and go, maybe it was fine that they skipped it. But I think regardless, when we look back, we'll still think it was a shit idea to skip the Game Awards, regardless of what they bring next year. So, do you guys have anything else to say on the Game Awards, Xbox lack of presence, any of the other announcements that we might not have touched on? Or I mean, we didn't even talk about any of the real awards, to be perfectly honest, which I think maybe says something about it. So is there anything else that you gents want to talk about there before we maybe touch on the FTC and the suing of Microsoft? No?
So we did get the one kind of big thing I didn't expect was we did finally, after years, get the date for Suicide Squad, where they said May 26th, end of May. So May 26th, and it has Batman in it, which was kind of a big surprise, and they did that because of Kevin Conroy. So it seems like that was a kind of nice tribute, I guess. And then I did not expect to see. I'm a big Cyberpunk fan. We don't have to rehash all the issues that game had, but generally speaking, as it is, I really enjoy it, and really looking forward to that expansion. I did not expect to see Idris Elba in that, which is pretty cool. Hopefully, it's a significant role and not something that's kind of throwaway. But I would assume, as big as he is right now in the industry, that it's got to be something significant for him to do it. I hope so.
Yeah, and I believe Keanu Reeves is coming back to do some more work for that as well. So that's
and then that's a big one. And then the last thing I'll just mention is Armored Core. So from FromSoft, so big FromSoft fan. I could preach about Elden Ring. I promise I won't. But this actually leaked a few months ago, actual footage, screenshots, etc. of Armored Core. So we knew it was coming, but it was cool to see the trailer and the official announcement and stuff. So that should be a big game next year too. Yeah.
I've never played an Armored Core game. I've tried to find out what type of game is Armored Core. Is there anything
like
you
an
can compare
RPG
it to?
strategy game? So like RPG strategy, think of like it depends, because there's a lot of Armored Core games. I haven't played all of them. So Luke, you maybe can speak to it better than me. I don't know, but think of like a RPG strategy, I don't know if XCOM's a good comparison or not. Luke, do you know better than me?
Some of the Armored Core games like that. Others are more like third person action combat games. I don't mean like Platinum style, a bit more slower than that. But most of the mainline entries have been like that, except seems like with the description of this one, they're trying to Souls it up a bit, which makes sense. That's a successful formula for them. So I think this one, you can basically expect a kind of Souls game, except with giant mechs that shoot and probably no bonfires. So, because Armored Core traditionally is quite mission centric. It's not like a kind of Souls world style experience. So I'll be interested to see if they keep the mission style, but maybe just introduce kind of more of the moment to moment mechanics of Souls games. But yeah, typically they're like third person, action combat. But some of the other entries have been a bit like XCOM tactical style as well. So.
Yeah.
Who knows what this one will actually be like? But I think, from there, isn't it? You can have all the faith in the world that it should be really good. The only thing I will say is I think Armored Core generally doesn't lend itself well to the kind of ethereal, incredible art style that From are famous for. It's kind of dour worlds, big mechs. So but then again, I'm sure I saw some of the screenshots actually, and it looked quite interesting visually. So I think I think it'll be great. I am surprised they're calling it Armored Core 6 because I would have thought that you would probably just reboot and just call it Armored Core at this point, because I don't like it's been out of action as a franchise for so long. I don't think people are going to look at that and be like, oh, the 6th version of Armored Core, particularly fans who aren't into Armored Core.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised they just didn't call it, Armored Core Fires of Rubicon or something like that, and just get rid of drop the 6. And I think that might have served them better in the long term in terms of their marketing, because they could say, a new game from Software, Armored Core, and it kind of brings more non-fans into it. But I thought it was really cool, and I can't wait to see what it looks like, to be honest. And I think they said one of the designers, one of the lead designers from Sekiro was game director on this.
He's the game director. Yep.
Yeah, so it will be brutal, probably. If Sekiro is any indication. So yeah.
I have been told that Sekiro is the hardest of their games. Is that
100%.
fair?
I agree. I agree with that.
100%. Yeah.
It's just unique. It takes a lot of practice and timing and stuff. I did pull up I have the leak here in front of me about Armored Core. So it says third-person shooter mecha action title lets you move an overwhelmingly scaled map, unique sci-fi world. It says game offers long-range combat with guns, but also short-range combat elements such as blade and shield. You have offensive and defensive tactics, dynamic three-dimensional movement. Reconfigure body parts and weapons in order to upgrade your mech, high level of customization, etc., etc. So, sounds like RPG, action.
Yeah, I think the setting of an Armored Core game, even though I'm not particularly familiar with the franchise, is something that I'm more interested in than maybe the direction that they've gone with something like Elden Ring. So, but I am in agreement. Look, I think calling it Armored Core 6, especially considering it's been so long since the last game. I did look up Armored Core 5 footage to get an idea of what Armored Core was like, and I couldn't believe how old the footage was. I'm like, holy shit!
Yeah,
games have come a long way since then, and FromSoft, I think it's probably fair to say, have come a hell of a long way since then as well. So, that was Jeff Keighley's getting in with FromSoft. I think it's probably fair to say if you expect anything from FromSoft, it's going to show up at a Keighley show. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled. Is it a little bit surprising that that's coming next year? I was surprised that it came, because obviously Elden Ring only came out this year. I know they've got multiple teams on the go, but I was a little surprised that was coming as soon as 2023.
Supposedly a bit in development for a long time now. Right after Sekiro came out, so 2018. So you're 5 years.
Yeah. And it seems like they might have split maybe their team into like a 1.5 game development team, where you've got half a team incubating a project, and then kind of early development after Elden Ring. You get a big chunk of people go onto that to accelerate it, but it's maybe they've gone to 2 teams anyway, because for them to hit 2023, I think shows been development. And as Ains said, we had leaks earlier this year of gameplay screenshots. I never saw any of the footage, but I did see the screenshots. So it's I think there was a play test at some point as well. I think that's where Roland dropped from. So, and I heard some impressions that were positive about it as well. So I'm looking forward to just seeing a review. It's from Software. You don't even have to, them and Insomniac and a few other developers. You can just guarantee that it will be good. I think at this point, they just have that magic touch, don't they? So
they're in that place now. Yeah, Miyazaki came out and said, about Elden Ring, they have grander ideas and things they want to work on, and he wishes he could be I think he said something to the effect of like he wishes he could create something that's like, or continues to create something that's celebrated. And I'm like, dude, you had Game of the Year contenders in
Yeah.
2015,
Yeah.
16,
Yeah,
18,
yeah,
and 21. Like, what do you? You're
You've got
literally one of the
nothing
top.
left to prove.
Yeah.
No.
Like he's made. I mean, basically birthed an entire genre, subgenre
Yes.
of games, and within that made a collection of legitimately the greatest games ever made, like capping it off really with Elden Ring. So yeah, I don't think. I mean, it's great for us because the
Yeah, I
more
don't want him to go
Miyazaki
anywhere.
makes, the
Keep working.
better. Like, yeah, that's just keep making
Eating
games.
good.
Brilliant, love it. But yeah, I don't think he's got anything anything left to prove really.
No.
Yeah. I don't think we can probably talk about the Game Awards without talking about the special appearance from what turned out to be a child, basically, at the end of the show, which, because I missed that live, was a little bit of a surprise to wake up to the next morning.
Oh, did you?
To hear the stage had basically been ambushed.
Well, it was bizarre because he had apparently planned it. He walked up with Miyazaki and Miyazaki's translator and two other guys from. And so they're accepting for Game of the Year. And I'm in a live chat. I was talking to people watching the show. And I said, who's the kid? Like, who's the kid? It's like, well, maybe it's Miyazaki's son. I'm like, no, that's not Miyazaki's son. I'm like, I don't know who this kid is. And then, they wrap up and they start to walk and he makes the Bill Clinton. Everyone was confused. Everyone's who was that? And did he just say Bill Clinton? Like, what is going on?
Did the audience just out of habit applaud afterwards as well? Am I right? Because he said something, so it's just like we're just gonna have to applaud now. I think I watched a clip. I think of Minmax doing a reaction. I think someone was like, "You, Ains." I can't remember who it was, but she was like, "Who is this kid? He's not meant to be there." And then obviously just as it transpired, it's like, no, he's not meant to be there. So
he was just standing there, like while Miyazaki was giving his speech, he's just standing there in the background. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, it was clear he wasn't part of their group.
Yeah. Very, very strange. I mean, on a more serious note, maybe they need to check on their security because that could have been, far more dangerous. So I know we can have a laugh and joke about it now, but I'm sure that's something that's going to be big on their mind for next year's show, or even any of Keeley's shows between now and the Game Awards. Because I'm glad we can laugh about it now and nothing serious came of it. But yeah, it was a truly
wild, truly
bizarre. I can't think of anything like that happening at a game show. No,
I was thinking about the whole Chris Rock moment, and the Oscars, and I'm like, how do these guys not have just security right there at the stage? Like, and when someone comes to accept an award, how do you not know who's walking up? Like, I know you can't really tell them ahead of time, but there has to be some way to prevent random people from just walking up onto the stage with. Imagine if that guy wanted to attack Miyazaki, to your point, right?
Yeah.
Like, now you have a very, very serious issue on your hands. It's weird.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be strengthening security for next year to ensure something like that doesn't happen again. But like I say, a bizarre and thankfully we can look back in it a funny moment. So I'm conscious we've spent a fair bit of time. I did want to sort of wrap up by about 10, so maybe another 15 minutes or so. But I thought we should maybe use the next bit of the show just to chat a little bit about the FTC. Now, Ains, you've obviously got Hog on your show as your resident legal expert. We've thankfully got Luke, our resident legal expert. I did actually say to Luke once, we should try to get those two together on a show one time, maybe when this thing is wrapped up one way or another, especially if maybe it does get blocked, we should maybe get the two of them on together just to talk it through. But
a long show.
Yeah. I imagine. But obviously the big news, and the timing probably wasn't great for Xbox as well. The same day as the Game Awards, FTC come out and announced that they're going to sue Microsoft in an attempt to block the ABK merger. And that day was, how do I explain it? It was frustrating for me, and I imagine for yourself, Luke, even more frustrating than that, because there was a lot of legal experts, as always with this thing. So many lawyers come out the woods when these announcements are made. So, Ains, I'm sure you've spoken to Hug about it just on today's show. I've seen a lot of Hug's reaction to it as well. He went live pretty much straight after the announcement. It was wild. It was kind of one of those things, because he went live and things were still happening while he was live, and chat was telling him what was happening. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was fun to watch it at the same time. Maybe not too surprising though in the grand scheme of things, but it really, I think it's fair to say, it isn't looking too great on that front for Xbox at the moment. So where you land on this at the moment, Ains?
I mean, I can't say too much. I don't have any knowledge in the space. That's why I defer to these guys, because they do, and I know it's incredibly complicated, and there's so, I think why, to Luke's point, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why you can talk so much about these things is kind of twofold. One, there's very hard to ever give any definitives, right? It's always there's too many things.
That's just a lawyer thing.
That's a lawyer. They never be definitive, right?
But even more so in this case, yeah.
And then you have the political climate over here, which is just adding to those factors, right? Yeah. And you have, as you guys, the whole world knows, it's been a mess over here politically, as it has in the UK.
Let's just say we're not much better over here, mate. Don't worry.
For the past several years, but right now, at this moment in time, you have an FTC under a new administration that's trying to make a point. And what Hogue said earlier was that it does at least feel and seem that there is some political motivation here as well. And this is kind of a case that could be made an example of. And so I can't speak to any of the knowledgeable stuff about it. It's not my area of expertise, but it is going to be interesting to see unfold, because we have talked about the extent of the acquisition and what it means for their business, right, in terms of Xbox. And I've done a lot of content on that. And when you look at where they're driving in the future and what they're planning for, you look at, obviously, as everyone in the world knows at this point, how big Call of Duty is and the impact of Call of Duty, but you look at the mobile space and King, and you look at Blizzard has this kind of very, very hardcore dedicated PC fan base, and there's just a lot of facets to what owning Activision Blizzard could do for Xbox as a brand. But all that said, and Luke, obviously, you can speak to this more intelligently than me, but what Hogue seemed to allude to is there now comes a time where, Microsoft's case is exceedingly strong, but there is a question of, there's time and money and resources and image and everything you have to invest to technically win. And those costs go up and up and up as time goes on. And, what is the worth? Is it worth it to Microsoft to follow through on this? So I'll stop there, because Luke obviously can speak to it better.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, it's as you say, it's a difficult. I mean, look, if I was like counsel to Microsoft at this point, it would be really difficult to like advise them as to what they should do. At this point, you would probably go ahead and keep fighting it, because the EU Commission and the CMA obviously haven't delivered their phase 2 analysis yet. So there's a world where those two are willing to accept concessions, and then all you're really doing is battling against the FTC. And I think as Hogue has you alluded to, that Hogue has said, agree with. I think in terms of rationale, Microsoft have a pretty strong argument, or at least one they could make in front of an independent party to the FTC. Right. But yeah, there's all sorts of termination costs that come with this that increase the longer this goes on. There's obviously just kind of business cost basis that happens now. Is this worth putting more money into? Does that screw up all the diligence you've done prior to this point if you keep this extended? Obviously, I think the administrative review, the administrative court date as it is for the FTC is set for early August next year. That probably means that they're going to have to think about amending the merger agreement that had a sanction date, which I think was, well, they've publicly said is around June. You would have to take that back to Activision shareholders at that point to get them to approve amendments to this, to keep it going, basically. In the interim, they can't close the deal anyway because the consent of the FTC. The FTC don't actually consent, but anyway, the consent of the FTC, the CMA, and the EU are named as conditions to the merger agreement. So you can't complete your acquisition until you satisfy conditions. It's impossible by the terms of their own merger agreement. So they're in this like kind of horrible position at the moment where they're kind of in a stasis of, well, we need to battle the FTC, but we can't actually do anything else in the meantime, really. And in the meantime, you may get, decisions from the CMA and or EU Commission that effectively tank the deal anyway. And I think that's probably why the FTC presumably went down this route, because and didn't try to injunct Microsoft, because they knew that Microsoft just couldn't close this, and they could put this time out to next August, do things, get a case together, that sort of stuff. If I was advising Microsoft, I would be saying it doesn't look good. It doesn't look. It really doesn't. This is like the worst possible place your deal could be if you require cross-jurisdictional competition consent, and that's baked into your agreement. It's a really bad place. I said this. I mean, if people remember, I said once the CMA went to phase 2, that is not a good place historically, because the deal mortality rate for a case that goes to phase 2 with the CMA is really high. It's about 70, 75, 80%. And that's not because the CMA block it. The actual percentage of cases that the CMA block in that statistic is quite low. But it's because something else is happening globally that causes the deal to be unwound or abandoned or blocked. And it's usually because the general sentiment amongst regulators is very bad. They're not impressed by it, and they don't want it to happen. And I think for Microsoft, they were always going to be in that case anyway, at least from an FTC perspective, because the FTC is headed by someone who wants to make an example of big tech, irrespective of the underlying competition effects of a particular transaction, which is bonkers to me. Like, I mean, that's absolutely crazy. I mean, that's the US. No offense, but like, that's just,
we're crazy.
You these institutions. I mean, it's crazy. The CMA and the EU Commission are not politically incentivized in the same way. They don't have the same. They are kind of stalwarts through many different administrations, and really nothing much changes. And in fact, we've had the CMA are an institution that have become more aggressive, even under a government that is typically more akin to a Republican government, in the UK, that you would think, would want to kind of take a more lax approach to mergers and acquisitions and from a competition perspective. But actually, the CMA have kind of gone the other way as well. And that's that's kind of almost in of itself politically motivated, because, this breakaway from the EU and stuff like that. So the CMA kind of have more of a control over what they do. But, the FTC stuff is just quite amazing, I think. And it's funny that, people were a bit more optimistic a couple of weeks ago when we heard about, maybe there were Democratic members of the FTC who were willing to actually turn their vote over. Lena Khan was said to be meeting with Brad Smith, and there was, maybe some motivation there to come to some sort of arrangement. And then, of course, the FTC go, actually, you know what? No, we're just going to go for it. We're just going to block it. So, we're going to sue to block. So I found it super interesting. As you imagine, Hogarth, I've been following some of his stuff as well. And it's, the one thing I think I'll speak for Hogan is it's really frustrating when people, I'm sure he gets really frustrated when people ask him, like, well, what do you think will happen next? Like, we're in really, and like, even the council for Microsoft and these, and Activision, etc., will be in a position where they're like, we don't know. Like, you just have, like, you don't know. You're in a world of significant uniqueness at the moment. And Microsoft can have all the strong arguments they want, and they do have strong arguments. But that's just not necessarily enough. You can't just you can't account for what regulators may or may not do sometimes, because they have such such a wide purview of powers of analysis, that if they get an idea in their head, they will probably see it through to the end, and nothing you can do can persuade them otherwise. So Microsoft are in a tough point, really. But it's very hard to look into a crystal ball and say what will happen. But if I were to put odds on it, I don't think the deal will happen. Frankly, I think there's too many factors now that have gone against Microsoft in this, and I think it would just too much of a cost battle for them to try and see this out.
Yeah,
it's funny.
No, go on, Ains.
Sorry, Scott. I was just going to say it's funny you say that, Luke, because I know Hogue, I think, said the other day, he said he's more negative than positive now. He's like, the percentage is higher that it won't go through. And I think people really got upset about that. He's like, look, it's guesswork, but here's my feeling on what's happened. And you just said it. Same thing.
Yeah, it's actually been funny, and I don't know if you've noticed this with Hogue, but we've obviously been discussing it quite a lot on the show. Sure. From the announcement up to today, just the change in Luke's sort of opinion. Luke, I think it's fair to say, obviously, at the beginning you were fairly optimistic, and then just as each passing announcement by a regulator is made, kind of that percentage drops. And I remember the last time we spoke about it, I think, Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, it was something like you were like 70-30, like in favor of the deal coming through just a few short months ago, and now you're now at the point where someone with the obviously expertise, you're on the opposite side of that. So it is interesting, and I think, at least from my uneducated opinion, I'll obviously make it clear, I do not have the expertise that Luke has, but I still kind of think that the FTC is probably the smaller of the three hurdles that they've got to overcome. I mean, as you say, Luke, where they've got the CMA, I think the preliminary announcement is due January, I believe you said, and as you said before, could be down in the water then. August is a million miles away at this point for when this case may be. They've got two potentially bigger hurdles to overcome between now and then, and I've been saying it for some time now that I don't think this deal will pass. And then maybe just to loop it back to some other conversations that we've had, if Microsoft are in a world where they didn't make announcements because of this, I know we agree that it isn't, but no doubt they have made business decisions in that time because of the process they've gone through. Let's say they weren't buying ABK, they probably would have been making other acquisitions on a smaller scale, but they probably haven't. Actually, I shouldn't say probably. In my opinion, I don't think they have, because of the process that they're following. They've kind of left themselves in a state of limbo, and what they've missed out on a year and a half, 2 years of where their business has been just kind of frozen a little bit because of it. So yeah, it's not looking good, and I'm really disappointed because I really wanted to play Diablo on Game Pass. That's the June 6th. It's not happening before June 6th. So I'm paying for Diablo. So
you have to imagine that, as they looked out of the forecast of what Activision was going to produce, right? Obviously, Call of Duty has its own cadence, but Diablo is easily one of the biggest releases of whenever it's going to release, right? It would be at June. It would be one of the biggest releases next year. Yeah. You had to think that was part of that portfolio they were hoping to have.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. It's going to be an interesting couple of months. I think from my perspective, I've said this to Luke personally, Ains, I find this all fascinating. Like, it's almost like a rare peek behind the curtain that I don't think we get. When people pick through those court documents, and even if it's redacted, you can get a sense of what it is, which I find really, really fascinating, just from someone who has an interest in the business, even just from a personal perspective, not professional perspective like Luke and Hogue. But then it's very difficult to pick through the bullshit, basically, that you get. Like, the announcement was Thursday. I turned Twitter off for a few hours after that, because the amount of lawyers that just came out of the woods all of a sudden was unbelievable. And
they're everywhere. I didn't know Twitter was all lawyers. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I can't believe that Jim Ryan was willing to sanction the sending of that many PlayStation 5s to the CMA in the first instance, then the EU. and then the FTC. I think that's
well, that's why they put the price of the console, Luke, because they've got to recover the cost from that
from
us regular folks, haven't they? Because they just give them all away. So
I was joking that it's going to be on CNN and all the big news networks over here that small-time podcasters are calling for the removal of the head of the FTC. It's just like you see these things, and it's like, good Lord, guys, you gotta get off of Twitter and get out of your podcast once in a while, because this is not how life works.
Yeah.
No.
It has been a while. Thankfully, it's died down since then, but it was a wild day on Thursday with a lot of opinions going around. I found it particularly interesting hearing people not from the States having very strong opinions about organizations within the States, like the FTC. Like, I didn't even know who this is. It Lena Khan?
Lena Khan.
Yeah, I've never heard of her before.
I've never heard of her.
She's public enemy number one all of a sudden amongst the community. So. It was a crazy, fun, fascinating, frustrating day. I know when Luke speaks about it, we sometimes use this as therapy for Luke Ains. I don't know if Hog has it. Gives him a chance to vent and get his opinions out there, because of the frustration. But I can imagine that, Luke, for yourself, it was particularly frustrating to hear a lot of the commentary from the wider public.
Yeah, I think the problem with it is, there's two problems with it. One is that you get so much like misinformation about things, from a legal, not even just a legal perspective sometimes, but like a common sense perspective, and it gets kind of bifurcated everywhere on Twitter all the time, so you keep seeing it, and there's no point trying to address it because it's impossible to contain once it's at that point.
Sure.
That's very frustrating, and I think this, and as you say, like the amount of lawyers, competition experts that come out at this time, or that try and like rationalize things, is quite amazing. And the second thing, which I think is probably tied to the first, is the personal stake that people put in this stuff, and it's some people just really take it to heart. I'm not going to say who, but like some people are really focused on this. And I don't mean like Hogue or anything, because Hogue is just analyzing it from a legal perspective, and that's intensely interesting. And Hogue's, I think for Hogue, again, I don't want to speak for him, but I don't think he really cares if it goes through either way. It's just a really interesting case study. Yeah, so he doesn't care. I don't really. I mean, I care to the extent that I'd like it to go through, because I'd like more games on Game Pass, because I'm a Game Pass subscriber, and two, I'd like the idea of Microsoft having access to Sledgehammer and Infinity Ward and all of these Toys for Bob, like all of these studios, and being able to put them to work on different things and like kind of unlock them in that way. I mean, that's cool. But if it doesn't happen, I just don't I don't give a shit. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not going to make any difference to me. It will make a difference to certain people, within those organizations and stuff like that. And that's, particularly for Activision. But I don't think people should be putting like personal, like, what does it matter if Microsoft acquire them or not? And I would be the same if PlayStation were trying to acquire them. Does it really matter if they don't or they do? It doesn't. Not in the grand scheme of things. Like, gaming is legitimately, and I love gaming, is not that important. Like, there are many more important things in the world. And if you're putting personal investment into Microsoft, a $1 trillion corporation acquiring another multi-billion-dollar corporation, you have significant issues that you need to work through, to be frank. And you need to put that energy into stuff that's a bit more positive and beneficial for you and people around you. So.
Yeah.
Well, very well said, Luke. Yeah, it's like a sports match to these guys. They want their team to win, and it's exhausting.
Yeah, but I don't get that, because at least with sports, you have like a personal connection. Like, if I'm supporting Sheffield United and they're from Sheffield, it's like something personal to me. I mean, ultimately, the football clubs are still companies at the end of the day. They're still a bit different, but they're institutions like that. But at least I have like a personal connection, and my whole family grew up supporting them. I've always, go there. That's what I do. Like, what's yeah, we love Xbox, but it's just a product. It's just something that you have and that you enjoy. It's like anything. It's like, I mean, the same happens for Apple, Samsung. Like, you have these people who are so invested in these products and the wider, companies that produce them. But you're not special. They don't care about you. They're just, you're a figure on an Excel spreadsheet to them. So don't care about them to the same extent. Just, if you want to support and show your appreciation for a brand, I think that's fine. But once you start getting into, attacking like regulatory institutions, whether you think they're right or wrong, or then getting kind of personal and attacking people, I think that's really weird. Or, conspiracying about corruption and all this other stuff. It's very strange to me. It's really strange.
Yeah. And I mean, taken to its most extreme, it can be dangerous too.
Yeah.
And we've seen that, that's more than any time over the last several years. And I think I know I'm preaching to the choir here, and I won't rant on about it, but I think what you commented on there about just things kind of becoming, I use the word like echo chamber in these Twitter communities, and it's just one person says it, someone else says it, and then everyone just kind of says the same thing, and they kind of parrot it and don't really reflect on what they're saying, whether it's true or not. And I'm in the kind of tech space, right? I work on applications and things like that, so that's where my kind of institutional knowledge is. And so, like an instance for me a few months ago was when I forget who it was now, started the rumor that Halo Infinite's switching engines. You guys remember that? Like, Halo Infinite's on Unreal.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, no. Like, where did that come from? I'm like, that's not going to happen. And then it spread, and then there's articles, and I'm DMing people, and they're DMing me. And it's just like, guys, like, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. Just stop talking. Like, you're just throwing stuff out there that has no basis in reality. And the more you talk about it, the worse it sounds. So, that's one of the most frustrating spots. Like, I met you guys, I've met hundreds, even thousands of really great people through Twitter and the gaming community, and I'm very fortunate to do all the stuff we love to do that we're talking about today. But I just wish that we could be a better community in the sense of just letting the people who have the knowledge speak, taking time to learn facts, and not being so invested, to your point, Luke, in just companies. Just enjoy the gaming aspect. Think about when you were a kid. Did you care who made something? No, you just played the game and enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, Ains, like to just getting like a particular example, like if Prime One, make a statue, and then you see something like great from like XM Studio, you don't go, well, I'm a Prime One fan. Like, I couldn't possibly like be in, like that. Just doesn't happen in different. Like, you just like, damn, that's cool. I want to buy that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't happen. Or if Prime One want to buy another statue company, you're not like, oh man, I really hope they do, because then they'll make like more statues.
I'm writing to the FTC because
Lena Khan's taken a really hardcore position against statue manufacturers as well. Like, it's just so strange. It's like, it just doesn't happen in other stuff. So I think people just need to abstract themselves from this process a bit and reevaluate what's actually important.
Can I just say how proud I am of you two, actually? It's taken us a good 2 and a bit hours for you to talk about statues at all throughout this entire show. We did have a little bit in the pre-show, but we've gone the whole show, and you just had to sneak it in towards the end.
You gotta do it. It's gotta be done.
Yeah, it's just and we know. I mean, there's a lot of shows out there that play to this, right? And they get a lot of viewers, and when people just listen to these same shows over and over again that continue to repeat this stuff, it just becomes, people really do believe they're in the right and they're thinking clearly, and they're just not. So anyway, I'll leave it alone. I preach about that stuff way too much as it is.
To be perfectly honest, I don't think there's a better way to finish the show on those words from you two guys there. So I think we'll take this opportunity to end the show. I've just seen a message there from Tukungulu who says he can't wait for this all to end. I'm kind of at that stage now. I'm looking forward to when this is kind of over and we can look forward regardless what the outcome might be. So, but yeah, I just really want to say a big thank you, Ains, for joining us. Appreciate you. 2 shows pretty much back to back today, so really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show, mate.
Yeah, man, it's been a blast. You guys are awesome. Yeah, it's I appreciate you. I'm glad that we could finally work this out and make it happen. So chat and you guys hanging out with us today, thank you, and thanks for swinging by. And no, it's great. Literally what we were just talking about. I joke because I do a show with Luke of Xbox Expansion Pass, who you guys know, and I always say to him and I say to Joe who does Trophy Room, there's nothing wrong with having a show dedicated to a platform, but there's a way to go about it, and I think you guys go about it properly, as do they and a few others. So I love seeing that kind of stuff, and it's nice to come on and chat with you guys. I appreciate the conversation, and we'll have to talk about doing like a bigger chat next year in relation to this with a group. Maybe we can just merge, just bring you both on to Big Cast and have a round table type discussion about it. It could be fun.
Yeah, that'll be awesome, mate. And just in case anyone in the chat, I would be very surprised if they didn't, but just one last time, if anyone doesn't know where they can find you, Ains, do you want to let them know where they can find you on Twitter, YouTube, those places?
Yeah. So Season Gaming, if you just go to seasongaming.com, you can find all of our links there to our channel, to our shows, to the people who write for Season Gaming, including myself. I'm Ains, or Porsche Power, which is my gamer tag, PlayStation, Steam, Xbox, wherever. And then Ains, there's not too many Ainsleys out there. Pretty easy to find in that regard. So, but no, always love talking games. I play everything. I literally talk about games every day, in and out, and love doing so. So, any support you can throw our way over at Season Gaming and the people that write over there and the stuff we do is appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And those links should be in the description. If anyone is interested in checking out, please do. Like I said at the beginning of the show, very much one of the best places on the internet. I don't say that lightly, and I don't. I'm not just saying it because Ains is here. Bigcast is excellent. The website is excellent. Some of the articles most of the articles are excellent as well. So, yeah, once again, Ains, thank you very much for joining. And Luke, yourself, thank you very much for joining as well, mate. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show.
Oh yeah, really fun. Big thank you to Ains as well. Always it's an absolute pleasure. Can only reiterate everything Scott read that as well. So it was really awesome to have you on, and I am surprised that we only got like a 1 minute mention of statues, because I thought
we'll
was going to be. We'll have to, yeah. We'll have to do that. There needs to be more statue podcasts out there. There's only a couple. There needs, that needs to be a thing. So, but yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you saw, I got the Pure Arts Pontiff Sullivane Dark Souls 3 statue. It is a disaster.
Yeah, I saw there was some issues with it. Because I remember seeing it. It's Pure Arts, isn't it? Yeah, I remember seeing it a while ago and thinking it looked super impressive. And watched your video, and it doesn't. I mean, it looks good. It's got some good stuff about it, but yeah, it's not as I think it's the paint apps more than anything actually that don't look good as maybe they should do.
Yeah, the quality is it's a mess anyway. So I've had a lot of people, several comments already respond saying they got theirs and they too had issues or stuff broken. And it's like,
that's a real shame.
Bad.
Also,
but anyway, sorry.
that boss nearly made me quit Dark Souls 3.
Oh, yeah,
he's such a pain in the ass. Him as well, I nearly quit on him. So
he is a stereotypical From Software taking the piss boss, is what he is. It's like, you think you got him figured out? Now there's two of them. Deal with that.
Yeah, much like this guy behind me. The only reason I got this guy is because his design is amazing, but also because I wanted to kind of memorialize that I beat that bastard with Smo as well. It's like a trophy of like, imagine that's his actual like corpse. That's what I wanted that to be. Just typical FromSoft boss, as you've said.
Yeah, well, we'll end the show there, and we just want to thank everyone in chat who joined us this evening as well. Appreciate everyone who stopped by. If you do have a moment, please do take the opportunity to like, subscribe, share, all that usual malarkey. That would be greatly appreciated. Hopefully we'll be back next week. We'll let you know times and all that sort of stuff a little bit closer at the time. Obviously, we're getting close to Christmas, so we might be having a little bit of a break around that time. I'm sure we'll be back in the new year as well. So again, thank you very much everyone for joining, and we'll see you all on the next one.